Kenneth Del Vecchio, a political and legal strategist. Ken, who's correct? The Republicans who say that this was a policy that began with the zero-tolerance action the president and his administration took in April, or the president who says this is all the fault of Democrats?
The president, of course.
Okay.
Look, you know where I'm going to go. We got to look at this through the scope of justice. Where are all these people that should be complaining and moaning about the Americans that are arrested on these petty crimes, millions of them a year, who are taken away from their children, and their children are taken away from them? Everybody who gets arrested for a marijuana charge or a cocaine charge or a petty theft.
Not everybody. I mean, if it's a misdemeanor, you don't get
everybody who gets incarcerated, I'm talking about.
But if it's like David said, if it's a misdemeanor, which crossing the border illegally is a misdemeanor, in the U.S., you post bail and go home to your kids. You don't get separated. No, you do. When it's a misdemeanor, you can post bail and get home. You don't get separated from your families for months and months and months.
I'm going to respectfully disagree. I'm a former judge, a former prosecutor, and people on misdemeanors all the time get separated from their families. It's unfortunately part of our criminal justice system. And in this case...
But even when that happens, there's time to prepare. You can reach out to other family members. This is happening immediately at the border.
When people get arrested, it's a spontaneous action that happens in a split second, in the moment, and people are separated from their children all the time. And I am the guy that you would want to come in front of if you were arrested and charged. I was the most compassionate judge you would ever meet. But unfortunately, in these circumstances, this is a crime, even though it is a misdemeanor, and now it's being treated as such, where people are being prosecuted. And by the way, Obama started a similar policy. So this isn't all brand new. It's brand new that it's being enforced at this level. I'm not against, by the way, decriminalizing this and making it just a civil infraction. But since it is a crime, just like there's so many other ridiculous crimes out there that get enforced where people are separated, there's nothing improper or unjust about this.
Jeannie, how about it?
You know, if you think about what the United States has become as we pursue this policy, we've become a nation that most of us don't recognize. And I respectfully, vehemently disagree with what you just said. When you have parents bringing their children, trying to escape horrific persecution, we have been a country that has welcomed immigrants for many, many decades, my family being among them. To say that the United States is going to rip children from their mothers and fathers, detain them in cages, only show us pictures of the boys. We haven't seen pictures of the toddlers. We haven't seen pictures of the girls. And our Homeland Security, they can't explain why. That is not the country most of us know.
This is great theater. This is great theater that you're
Can I finish? Please don't interrupt me.
You're like way over-exaggerating what's
Exaggerating what? Can you let me finish?
Sure, finish.
Oh, thank you so much. So let's look back at this now. You can have a rule-abiding society where you also respect the rights of families and children, where you allow toddlers to stay with their mothers while they are going through this process.
Would you like to rewrite the entire criminal code?
There is no reason.
Are you equally upset about people who were arrested for small crimes, who were incarcerated, who were taken away from their families? Because you should be rewriting the entire criminal code.
Here's the issue. There is a certain amount of discretion that's involved, because we know that because the Trump administration has released something like 100,000 people who crossed the border illegally. They've been released and allowed to return. So it does feel like, at least until April, there was some leeway that the Trump administration
And by the way, why isn't the president admitting that this is the policy that he has put into action and is pursuing? Why is he pretending that this is the fault of Democrats who don't control Congress? This is a policy the president has put into place a couple months ago that he could roll back with the stroke of his pen. If he is as proud of it as you suggest, why not say it? I want to separate families. Why not say it?
And the president also said it's so sad that families are being separated. So I guess the question we all have here is, he's doing it, so why is he saying it's sad?
This isn't about the separation of families, what you're talking about. This is about a political issue that you're entirely imposed to President Trump's immigration policy. What you're saying is rational. He could roll it back. He could make a decision to change the policy on it. But judges all across America can make decisions all the time within their discretion of whether to incarcerate somebody and whether not to. And I don't look at this under the narrow focus of this immigration issue. I look at it under the broad scope of overall justice. And this is a crime. a misdemeanor, which is a lower level crime.
How about it, though? I mean, if we are going to say that it is a crime, I mean, Congress isn't looking at changing the criminal code right now. They're simply trying to give an exemption. Shouldn't there be something done to say, okay, we should change it from being a misdemeanor to being something civil so that there's no reason for incarceration?
That could certainly happen, but if we're going to look at this as under the broad umbrella of justice, as you described, why don't we look at the ethics of the United States standing behind a policy where we're ripping children away from their parents? Why don't we consider the justness of that? That's why over 60% of the American public say this is not the way to do it. And I don't oppose, by the way, all of President Trump's policies in terms of immigration. So I don't know why that was suggested. I actually support some of them, but this is not one of them.
But what you're not understanding as the fundamental. No, you're not understanding the fundamental core issue here, that somebody's being charged with a crime, and anytime somebody's being charged with a crime that's an adult, they're separated from their parents if they're incarcerated. What would you like to do with those kids, for those people that are separated from them?
Let's do what the United States. Let's do what the United States. Can I answer? Let's do what the United States has been doing at the border for many years, keeping the families together while you go through that process. If you are going to put people into detention centers, put them at least together with their mothers and fathers while they go through the process. But can you answer why that can't happen?
I am going to answer it.
Okay. Why can't that happen?
Here's where there's a problem. If you're charging somebody criminally, you have to put them into a criminal institution.
We've never done that. Why can't we do what we've done for years?
In that criminal institution.
Why can't we do what we've done for years?
I just said to David before that, hey, I'd be okay with changing the policy and making it just a civil infraction as opposed to criminal. But if it is criminal, like all the other crimes that are federal and state, people unfortunately get separated from their children.
But again, and just to wrap this up, as Jeannie was mentioning, until then that was not happening on the border. This is a brand new policy of the Trump administration that he himself, Republican lawmakers say, can roll back. On that note, Jeannie Zaino.
Well, that's the point that Kenneth was making right off the start. He said, yeah, this is on President Trump. It's not on Democrats. I think on that we can all agree.
Fine. Fair enough.
Kenneth Del Vecchio, Jeannie Zaino. Terrific debate. Thanks so much for coming in. We appreciate it.
All right. Still ahead, North Korean leader